Well, good afternoon everyone and welcome to the ResOnline Channel Manager Interactive webinar. It's great to see so many people with us on this webinar. We've got attendees from all over Australia who have joined us today, so welcome. Now just to let you know, we are recording this webinar event and we'll make a copy of this video available to you so that you can view it after the webinar event if you'd like to go back over obviously and see some of the information that we've covered during the course of the event. Well, again, good afternoon. My name's Simon Oldham. I'm the organiser and the ResOnline Business Development Manager. Joining me today on the webinar is Brittany Stewart, who's our ResOnline Account Manager and Customer Support. Now, Brittany will be fielding any questions that you may have during the course of the webinar, and we'll do our best, obviously, to answer your inquiries as we go through. You'll see on the right of your screen there's a little questions or a chat box there where you can actually go ahead and type your questions in as we go. At the end of the webinar, we'll be opening up to a questions and answer, a live question and answer session where we'll be able to attempt to cover all of the major questions that come through during the course of the webinar. And it'll be an open forum, so if you've got any major questions, you might want to leave those to the end, and we'll see if we can answer those for you. We'll also add those most commonly asked questions, I should say, and answers, and we'll put those on the ResOnline website in what will be our Q&A section once we've had this event. So this will be a 1-hour webinar, and firstly we're going to look at the changing landscape. So we're actually going to talk about how the market was and how it currently is today. We're also going to look at system automation, and we're going to look at how you can automate your system and why this is so important. Then we're going to look at revenue performance. We're going to look at how to achieve a higher revenue for your property with less work. And then finally we're going to have a look at ResOnline, and we're going to see how you can make ResOnline work correctly for your own property. All right, let's have a good look at the changing landscape. Now, many of you would probably know there's been a major shift in the way we do business online, particularly in the last few years. In the past, we've obviously had a reliance on inbound travel agent operators and, of course, wholesalers, but this is now changed. Not only that, but guests have also changed their booking habits. In the last 10 years, we've seen the introduction of online reservation systems. It's now a main source of reservation, whereas print media and brochures and books and so forth are no longer the way forward. In fact, we've even moved on from email. When email first came out, again, was a major area for bookings, but it's not so much the case anymore. Now, USA and Europe embraced this market around about 10 years ago. And in the last couple of years, Australia and the Pacific have now followed suit. And Australia is growing quite rapidly in terms of moving to an online market. Social media, you can't escape that. It now plays a major important role, particularly in hotel in this industry. And it's having a huge effect, with sites like TripAdvisor being a big part of potential guest decisions amongst other sites. As you're probably aware, things like Facebook, for example, and social opinions and comments from peers now play a huge role in a guest decision in terms of where they would wish to stay. So ultimately, social media sites are very important. The only downside to the social media aspect is the limited control we have over how our businesses is interpreted and viewed online. But, well managed, this can still be in our favour. It is imperative, of course, to make the booking experience quick and easy for our potential guests. As we all know, we have limited time these days, so guests want to be able to get in, have a look at your site and book without complications. We look at creating an automated system because this not only frees up your own time, but also that of your guests and staff. And it also plays a big role in reducing human error when we have things like overbookings and those types of issues from occurring. And we'll cover this off a bit further as we go through. So what about distribution? Well, your hotel needs to be seen online, and I think we've just covered the reasons why. If you currently have no listings for your property online, then really you're limiting yourself to only over the phone and walk-in bookings, which now is one of the lowest percentages of bookings when you look at the booking origin. We also know that you need to be listed on as many channels as possible. Now you may say, well, why? You know, we've got 2 or 3 of the majors, but really an automated system eliminates the risk of overbooking. You can now ensure that your room availability is accessible for all channels. The more channels that you're actually listed on, the more bookings that you're going to receive. I mean, it really is that simple. Even if you're not generating bookings from a specific channel that you're linked to, at the end of the day, you're still gaining that advertising, that exposure that's most likely going to lead to people heading to your own website. The other thing you need to consider is really offering rate parity across all channels that your website's connected to, and of course your own website as well. So of course rate parity means that your rates are the same as what the rates are that you've got on all of the channels that you're listed on. Now it's important to make sure that you don't want channels to display a cheaper rate than your own website, because at the end of the day you're going to be paying commission on a booking that really you could have generated yourself. So it's important to ensure that those three aspects are taken into consideration. Okay, so now that you've given us some results in terms of who you're actually connected to, let's go ahead and look at the top 10 paid channels in terms of bookings that are generated per week. And this may surprise some people, but look, What If is number one. I mean, look at the number of bookings that they do purely just from that website per week. So most of you probably are connected to What If, but if you're not, take a good look at that because it's something that you should consider for your business. Numbers 2 and 3, again, probably as expected, Booking.com and Agoda, both very popular sites, followed by Check-In, Expedia, QuickBeds, Veneray, Jetstar, Orbitz, and Entertainment Book. There's probably a couple in there that might take you by surprise, but if you're not already connected to any of those in the top 10, would certainly be suggestive that you do so. So the beauty of ResOnline is really that it automates a connection to hundreds of OTAs, or online travel agencies. In fact, we have over 40 direct channels that will give you access to hundreds of OTAs. And although this looks like a squiggly mess, this just gives you some indication as to the connections that ResOnline put you out to. So, for example, iHotelier, if you follow that link from the center, then spreads off into a number of different areas, as you can see from that, what looks like a real mess. Okay, so in summary, as far as our distribution goes, we've already touched on the fact that you need to be online. If you're not, well, you really are falling behind the 8 ball. The market has shifted from traditional methods to online media, so it's essential that you have an online presence. We've now covered off the reason why it's important to be listed on as many channels as possible, because at the end of the day, what it's helping to do is expand your online presence and visibility. You need to be offering rate parity across all the channels within your website. Otherwise, you run the risk of undercutting yourself and losing direct reservations to another agent. ResOnline offers connections to over 40 plus channels. So using the ResOnline interface, it allows you to update obviously and connect to all those channels at once in regard to rates, availability, minimum nights, stop sells and inclusions. Again, just showing the power of how we've come in the digital age. ResOnline is continually adding more channels. As the market continues to grow and we keep up with market demand, ResOnline aligns itself with new players as they come into the OTA market, and that can only benefit you as we move forward. Well, that's enough for distribution. Now we're going to take a look at revenue management. Now some of you might say, okay, well, what is revenue management? Well, essentially it's the process of understanding, anticipating and influencing consumer behavior in order to maximize revenue and improve profitability. It involves a few things. Now here's just a few. Basically what we want to do is to be able to encourage consumer behavior that is beneficial to your hotel. And in doing this, you must understand consumer behavior in the first place. So what I'm saying is, what motivates a potential guest to book a room at your hotel as opposed to another hotel or at another price point? Once you have an understanding of this consumer behavior, you can then begin to anticipate what that consumer behavior would be over certain periods. From here, we then need to be able to influence that consumer behavior. Now, if you can understand and anticipate a consumer's decision, then the next logical step is to guide that decision in a direction that, of course, benefits your property. So in terms of selling rooms, influence is largely a function of channel distribution. So you want to be able to display a room to a customer at the price point that is most likely to entice them to then buy, or of course to stay, but at a price point also that's going to give you the most revenue. By doing this, it provides you with a huge competitive advantage in the market and helps you capture a bigger share or bigger slice of the market pie. So in essence, that's just a quick roundup of what revenue management stands for. Okay, so when we look at rate management, there's a couple of main points that we need to take into consideration, and that is You need to react to slow periods by offering special deals. So in doing this, it's important that you have rooms that would otherwise go unused. Reduce the rate. At the end of the day, what you want to see is bums in beds. So you need to be aiming for a 100% occupancy rate. By manipulating your stay rates is the best way to secure this, so that you can then fill those rooms that would otherwise be empty. In contrast, during busy booking periods, you want to be able to increase your rates. Now you might say, well, why would we want to do that? Well, essentially, it's the basic principle of supply and demand, and it applies to all industries. If you've got something that's well sought after, if you increase your rates, people are still willing to pay more to secure a room, knowing that it could then be sold to someone else if they don't take action. So essentially what you're doing is you're creating a sense of urgency, so people feel the need to make a decision straight away, or they're going to miss out. Now, Revpar, your key measure to success. What is Revpar? Well, Revpar actually stands for Revenue Per Available Room, and it's one of the most important measures in the hotel industry today. So how is Revpar worked out, and why do we really care? Well, it's accommodation revenue divided by the number of rooms that are available, and that gives you the revenue per available room, or Revpar. It's actually different from average rate in that it's a measure that divides revenue by the number of available rooms. So it's not the number of occupied rooms. It's a measure of how well the hotel has been able to fill these rooms off season when demand is low, even if the rates are also low, and how well you've been able to fill your rooms and maximize rates during a high season when when there is, of course, a high demand for the hotel rooms. So to put this in a bit more perspective, in this example graph here, if we were selling a standard room at an extraordinary rate of, say, $1,000 a night, the chances are that our occupancy rate would be at 0. Conversely, if we offered that same room at $0, then chances are our occupancy rate would be more like 100%. Now, in either of these scenarios, none of these are beneficial to the business or to our bottom line. So the answer, in essence, is to find a point in the middle where our pricing rates and occupancy level meet the needs and demands of the market, essentially allowing us to still make some money at the end of the day. So by doing this, we can sell our rooms at a price point that makes business profit and results in continual occupancy. So what are the steps then to achieving the best Revpar result? Looking at occupancy, it doesn't always tell you how you're doing. It does tell you how busy you are, but not how successfully or financially well the business is doing. So as that previous graph represented, the idea is to try and find a balance between occupancy and revenue to ensure that you're not over or underpricing yourself compared to the supply and demand in the market. What you also want to be doing is offering special deals such as pay stay deals for low business. So plan ahead for your low season and ensure that you're prepared for them by mapping out marketing strategies in advance. Be creative with them and remember to track your progress so that you can see which offers work well and which ones didn't attract as much attention as you'd hoped. We've already sort of touched on this too, but if your product falls out of favor, you lose out. What do we mean by that? We mean don't rely on simply one or two of the channels to get all of your online business. Your ideal position is to maximize your online reach to reach a wider audience, essentially. So for example, if one of the major channels suddenly becomes unavailable, you'll then find yourself without limited or no exposure to the market, and that's not good for anybody. It's pretty simple, but of course you can increase your online distribution by up to 30 or 40% simply by expanding your distribution points. So essentially, the more websites your property is listed on, the more potential guests that will be viewing that listing, meaning more potential bookings you can receive at the end of the day. It's an old analogy, but you just don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. Diversify your brand and market strategy and increase your visibility as a result. So let's look at the summary of our revenue performance. So what we've talked about is offering special deals during low seasons or low periods, and then conversely increasing your rates over high seasons. And this gives you a much better Revpar, as we've touched on. So Revpar was accommodation revenue divided by the number of available rooms, and it is an important measure in this industry. What we want to do is find a balance between occupancy and, of course, revenue. We want to be using a variety of channels to expand the online presence, and what we don't want to do is leave bookings on the table, which you would do if you limit yourself by the number of OTAs or channels you are connected to. Okay, ResOnline booking form. What is the ResOnline booking form? Some of you may already be using this and some of you may not. And we're going to actually cover that off in just a minute. But essentially what it does is it helps to turn your web traffic into bookings by having a fully integrated widget which embeds into your own website. What it does is it lets users stay then on your website to be able to view your availability and rates without having to go somewhere else. It integrates with your online distribution channel manager. It also allows you to have complete e-commerce bookings within your site again. So it stops them having to come to your site and then go somewhere else to actually book to stay with you. And what it does do behind the scenes is give you plenty of options. So you can then go ahead and change the look, the feel, and the design to be incorporated into the website the way you'd like it to be. All of this, of course, is achieved with only a few simple quick additions to the actual web page itself. Now, many of our clients actually either do it themselves or they may have their own online agency that they use, but we can actually give you some guidance in that area as well. Okay, so we talked about automating the website, and really this is where the booking form comes into play. So when you think about it, the old days of simply having an email inquiry form on your website for bookings, it just is no longer accepted by the market. It's now imperative that every property, no matter what size, big or small, should really incorporate instant booking capability, such as having a booking form, or run the risk of losing visitors to another potential site or another channel, for example, where you have to pay a commission fee on, or they may simply go and stay with someone else. Your guests these days, as you do, have less time to spend and therefore want a fast booking solution. So clearly email just isn't the answer. So when you're setting up your booking button and looking at specials and ways you can attract people, so to complement the booking form, we give you the functionality to create your own specials based around your existing rates. So these can be used for a number of different ways to generate more revenue during the quieter periods. So for example, we've got a few here. We could offer a stay pay deal. So a stay pay deal is a fantastic way to attract business. So it's offering, for example, stay 3 nights and only pay for 2. You would have obviously either used these or heard of these yourself. And everybody loves a freebie, so it's a great way to bring people in the door. You can also offer package deals. So package deals can be things like accommodation plus a bottle of wine on arrival, or perhaps a complimentary breakfast hamper or something of that nature. So, I mean, other clients have used this feature quite well, in things like romantic getaways or weekend retreats. So it's another good special that you can look to use. Offering dollar discounts. Now, naturally, this just refers to something like reducing your rates by a certain dollar amount, or perhaps sending a repeat guest an email to advise them if they come and stay with us in May or March or whatever, you may get $50 off for the night. This also works and is really good to have for your e-marketing or email marketing type campaigns. Percentage discounts are essentially the same thing, but obviously percentage rather than a dollar rule. So it's really just using this as an alternative, as we've got there, save 20% during the May period. And lastly, you can look at things like last minute and advanced purchase specials. So what they refer to really is creating any of the above special options, but setting some booking restrictions. So for example, you might say, look, you might create a stay pay deal, but in order for people to use it, they have to book it within 14 days of arrival, or they need to book during a certain period, say if they're traveling in February, for example. So it just really puts a time limit on it, and almost it's more of a strong call to action so that people need to do it in a sense of urgency. But they actually work quite well, and we have a lot of our clients that are quite happy to use those sorts of deals. We also have booking extras. So a booking extra really is a great feature that allows you to sell the extra products or services to your guests when they're making, at the time actually, then they're making a booking. So you can offer services such as, say, an airport transfer or daily breakfast or even tours. The extra features have been designed to allow you to have greater flexibility in how you wish to sell your own products. Booking extras are displayed on your booking form and are offered as an optional extra that can be added to a guest's online reservation by simply ticking a checkbox and then selecting the quantity required. The details of these extras will then be on an email confirmation that gets sent out to the guest once they've confirmed their reservation. So having a look at what we've got on the screen there, some of these options could include, a per booking extra. So we've talked about this before, bottle of wine on arrival. It could be a per night extra, so maybe a fold-up bed. We could look at a per person extra, so example would be breakfast daily. Or we could look at a per quantity extra and have, for example, dinner vouchers as a bonus or a booking extra. And then lastly, we could look at things like promotional codes. So really, the promotional code interface in ResOnline allows you to set up discount to offer your guests when they enter a valid coupon or a valid code into the booking form. So the promotional code can be valid for all rates and specials, or you may have it simply just to use for one. So once a guest goes ahead and enters into a valid promotional code, this discount is then applied and the particular rate plans are highlighted. So the discount will flow through to the booking page and email correspondence sent to you and to the guest that reflects those changes. So promotional codes, I mean, you could go ahead and create an email campaign and try to motivate guests to book by providing them with the code to receive a discount. And this actually works quite well, not only in this industry, but in many others. You could also offer corporate codes, so create a code that you would only send out to your corporate clients, for example, in order for them to receive a special discount, perhaps around times when they might have annual general meetings. You might even look at past guest codes and create a past guest promotional code and entice them to come back and stay with you again. And lastly, you might even look at things like travel agent codes, where you provide to a travel agent so that they can take a commission and only pay you the net amount at the time of the booking. So here's a tip. If you want a promotional code to be valid for a specific period, create a special first and then attach that code to the special. So for those, of course, who are currently using the system. So there you go. It really is quite a versatile tool, and it's something that we would encourage you to go ahead and try using if you haven't already. And if you are using the booking form, well, hopefully we've just covered off some areas that you may or may not have already had some experience with. So in summation, when we're looking at the booking form summary, it really does give you that opportunity to help automate your website. And as we've touched on, it's a very important factor to be able to do that, because the number of bookings that you lose to your competitors relies on how easy it is really for guests to book your property then and there while they're on your website. So what you want to avoid at all costs is numerous emails and phone calls required before a guest can confirm a room. And I think we've already sort of covered the fact that those days are pretty much well and truly gone. So as discussed, the general public now want to go from an idea to a booked holiday without hassle. We've talked about creating specials to attract more guests, and again, specials are a fantastic way of filling those empty rooms, particularly in low selling periods. We want to offer booking extras to obtain more revenue, which we've shown you as well, and those bookable extras are an easy way of generating additional revenue without having to do much more work. And of course, we can use promotion codes, as we've just touched on, to help us achieve that 100% occupancy rate. So we can create unwavering loyalty with repeat guests and attract brand new guests in using those promotional codes. And remember, you can also use these a number of ways, from offering them to the general public to corporate clients as well as travel agents. Well, that wraps up basically what we had to discuss in this webinar. Hopefully it's been insightful for you, and we thank you kindly for your time during the course of today. Now what we're going to do is open up to our live Q&A session, and I know Brittany's had her little fingers burning for the last half an hour answering people's questions, and I've seen a lot of them come through, so thank you for that. If we didn't get to your question, don't panic. We hopefully now will have time. And even if there's a really common question or a burning question that anyone has there's a little hand signal there. You can put your hand up if you'd like to speak, if you're happy to speak online. And then we'll open your audio and you can actually ask a question online as well. So again, thanks very much, guys. If you need to go, that's fair enough. But if you're happy to stay on, we're happy to sit here and answer your questions. And as we did mention, this will be recorded. So in the next few days, you'll receive an email from us just outlining how you can go about watching this again if you'd like to go through and watch any of the information in more detail. So thanks very much, and it's been a pleasure.